Hey everybody, it's your old pal Mike. I hope you're happy, healthy, and safe, and welcome back to the channel. This week we're doing a review, but we're gonna take it in a completely different direction because there's a whole world of offset style instruments out there that deserve love and respect just like the big boys. The Big F, you know who I'm talking about, and one of them is this fantastic Guild Surfliner Deluxe in Rose Quartz Metallic. I have had this guitar since about the middle of the summer, and I've been putting it through its paces, but I gotta say, I was impressed right from the start. As soon as I took the very padded gig bag out of its box, I knew I was in for a treat, and wouldn't you know it, the Surfliner Deluxe actually is a really good guitar, and for not a lot of money. At the moment, this guitar retails for about $700, and that is a lot of guitar for not a lot of money. I'm genuinely impressed with it. I think it's a great instrument and a great option among all of the options around. But before we get too far into it, let's get to some specs. The Guild Surfliner Deluxe features a 25.5-inch scale-length bolt-on roasted maple neck, a bound 23-fret rosewood fingerboard with a 10-inch radius, and pearloid block inlays. The headstock finish matches the body and wears 6 locking tuners, a composite nut, and a mirrored Guild logo. The poplar body is finished in rose quartz metallic polyurethane with a white pickguard. The Surfliner Deluxe comes with 2 Strat-style single-coil pickups, an HB2 Guild humbucker, and all of this is controlled via a 5-way switch and a 500K master volume and master tone. For hardware, we have a Tune-O-Matic style bridge with a 14-inch radius, as well as Guild's take on an offset style vibrato, the GVFT. Other distinctive touches include the open G neck plate, which matches the G on the tailpiece. The guitar is strung with Ernie Ball power slinkies and is tuned to E standard. Now, like I said earlier, I was pretty darn impressed with this the moment it showed up, but I gotta say, it's only grown on me since then. I love the iridescent pink finish. I think the body shape actually looks really cool and fits in with the Guild electric guitar lineage, and this vibrato is actually pretty darn good. That's not to say I don't have some complaints, but let's talk about some things I liked first before we get into the sticking points. This roasted maple neck is really comfortable, though just a tad wide for my personal preference. That's a me thing, but thankfully the profile is neither too full nor too deep to keep me from adapting quickly. Fit and finish is generally lovely, though I do have to point out there's a little bit of anomalous detritus in the finish, which you can see here, and here, and here. I'm not bothered by this at this price point. I feel like it would be silly for me to expect utter perfection at $700, so I'm gonna let it pass. Otherwise, everything else seems great. Neck pocket fit is good, the pickguard sits on the body well. I don't have any other complaints. Fretboard and fretwork are both really clean. There are no sharp edges all the way up the fretboard. The inlay work is excellent, and so is the binding. I will point out that there are 2 marginally high frets, the 20th and the 22nd, which do make the high E string choke out a little bit. Not that I'm spending all my time up there anyway, but that's worth noting as well. Just a little bit of choking out. On the subject of frets, 23 is kind of an interesting choice, isn't it? Not complaining, I usually only have 21 or 22. Still, cool having it. After a setup, the Surfliner Deluxe plays great, and in doing so, I tightened the truss rod, I widened the nut slots for my preferred string gauge, I set action and pickup height and intonated the guitar, and yeah, I'm very happy with the way this plays now. From the factory, tuning stability was just okay, not great. Better than maybe I expected with very subtle use of the vibrato, but to really get the range I expect out of an offset style vibrato, I had to do a few things. Namely, I reshaped the bridge saddle slots and lubricated both the nut and the bridge just like I would on any other Tune-o-matic equipped offset. After that, it's been really dependable. You hear that squeak? We're going to talk about that later. Tonally, the Surfliner Deluxe does cover a lot of ground with its 3 pickups and 5-way switch, and it has a lot of sounds that I don't normally have access to because most of my guitars are 2 pickup affairs. It's been really fun to experiment with those in-between sounds I don't often have, namely the neck and middle and bridge tones, but overall I think these pickups sound great. Paired together, the neck and middle do a spot-on Wicked Game impression, and that HB2 nails 90s alternative. The controls are all perfectly functional, I have no complaints there, but I do feel like they're just a little bit cluttered. Everything is right in the same area. The 5-way switch, the volume, the tone, and even the vibrato arm is hanging out here, so it feels like there's a lot going on, and every time I come down to change my volume level, I have to think about not hitting the switch, or if I come to change my pickup position, I'm gonna hit that volume control. So that is an area where I would suggest maybe a rethink in the user experience department, but like I said, everything's totally functional, it works. Hell, it might be a me thing, your mileage may vary. I should be upfront as well, the Guild did send this to me over the summer, but they didn't ask me for anything in return. They said, hey, if you use it in some content, cool, but no pressure. That said, this is not the first Surfliner that I've had. This is the second. The first Surfliner that I had, same color, same everything, arrived with one very glaring issue, and that was that the bridge was in the wrong place. It was actually a little bit too far back. So far back, in fact, that I could not intonate it. And that was a problem that is not so easy to correct. Now, to Guild's credit, they sent me a new one as soon as I pointed it out. They apologized. I'm not saying every guitar is going to exhibit that issue. This one, however, plays great, it intonates beautifully, I'm very happy with it. The bridge is in the right place, so maybe not a big issue. Now, I really like this guitar, I really do, but I have some complaints that I think are worth pointing out, especially if you are thinking about picking one up. And almost all of them have to do with hardware. For those curious, the GVFT Vibrato uses a similar route and component size to other Vibratos in its price point, so it would be pretty easy to swap out if you don't mind the extra holes. Now, it does appear that you could just as easily swap in the internals from another Vibrato, say a Fender AVRI or something more upscale if you wanted to upgrade. The Vibrato functions really well and is pretty solidly built, and I would even go so far as to compare the internals to that of the Fender Classic Player Trem, which is a good middle-of-the-road Vibrato, although not my favorite, due to some inconsistent manufacturing that I've encountered, as well as the screw-in vibrato arm which exists on that model. Thankfully, Guild jettisoned the screw-in collet idea for a design of their own, one that is adjustable with an internal nylon sleeve that keeps things in place, almost like a fusion between the Johnny Marr vibrato and the Mastery. And in practice, it's an idea that works really well thanks to the location of this swing tension adjustment screw, which allows you to adjust how loosely or firmly the arm swings as it travels. I've got mine set fairly firm so that it stays in place when I'm using it, but you can also let it loose. It really does work, and so far it hasn't changed on me. It hasn't loosened up. Okay, I know that I said I was going to complain, and then I said a lot of stuff that I like about it, and I really do like it, but here's the complaint. When I first caught this design, when the Deluxe was revealed, I became immediately concerned that the wider upper portion of this collet, where the screw goes, was going to catch on the B string. Thankfully, it hasn't caught, but let's see if you can hear this. That sound that you're hearing is the collet rubbing like grasshopper's legs on the B string, causing a little squeak. And yes, that squeak does come through the pickups. You can hear it in some of the demos. My first attempt at a solution here was to knock the string anchor plate toward treble, which gets the collet out of the path of the B string, but it keeps shifting back toward center, as you would want it to do. You want that vibrato to be centered. That's not a problem. I guess the real solution to this would be to file away the casing, but that is something that I would toss back to Guild and say, maybe it's worth redesigning that or putting the screw in a different location so the casing doesn't have to be quite that thick. There it is. No, it's back. It's back. And not to kick a good vibrato when it's down, I did have to pull the fulcrum plate and file down its legs, just like I've had to do on some recent Squier vibratos. I was experiencing some super annoying knocking whenever I would push the arm past a certain point. The whole unit would shift upward, causing a loud thunk. That is a symptom of fulcrum plate legs that are not perfectly honed, but now, I mean, aside from that grasshopper noise, it works really well. I'm very impressed with how it feels and how it pulls back into tune, but it's so distracting. That is so distracting. Boy, this is getting long. One other area of concern that I have is the tuners. Now, many of you know that locking tuners are not my favorite thing in the world. That's just a personal preference of mine. I will take a good Clouson style tuner over locking units any day of the week, month, year, or decade. However, the problem comes with these thumb wheels on the back. On locking tuners that have thumb wheels, the thumb wheels are there for you to screw in a little post that locks the string in place so that you can lock it. That's the whole point. However, with really heavy play, these things unwind. And that is a bit of a problem because that causes the strings to detune while you're playing because they are no longer locked in place. And I've had to stop during the demos to screw them back in, and that doesn't feel great. This is likely just a thumb wheel fit issue and maybe could be remedied with some blue Loctite, but I don't want to gunk these up. I want them to work smoothly. So ideally, I will probably just replace them at some point. I don't think it's worth messing with these to try and make them into something that they are not. Otherwise, they work okay. So those problems aside, it just has a couple of areas that could be refined further to make it pop even more at its price point. And again, $700. That feels like a steal. Otherwise, I think the Surfliner Deluxe sounds great, it looks great, it's very different among what is now a vast ocean of Jazzmaster and Jaguar shaped guitars. There's so many out there on the market, and if you're kind of tired of that, this is a good place to start. Everything else has really been impressive, and yes, the grasshopper sound is still there. But that's about it for me and for the Surfliner Deluxe. Again, I like it, I recommend it. Couple caveats, but nothing that should surprise you at this price point. Thanks so much for watching, and a quick shout out to my supporters on Patreon. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. If you're interested in supporting the channel, hit the links in the description down below. And there should also be some affiliate links in there if you don't mind. If you pick one of these up and maybe another vibrato, then there are a couple places where you can do that below. Signing off. Hope you're taking care of yourselves and each other. Hope you're having fun with the guitars, and I'll see you in the next video. Later!